Hey, welcome back to Video Game Reviews. Today I'll be talking about Blasphemous 2 on the Nintendo Switch. I would describe both games in the Blasphemous series as Souls-inspired Metroidvanias. To be honest, I only ever played through the demo of the first game, which was, in some ways, absolutely beautiful, and in other ways, arguably not polished enough. In my opinion, which may be controversial, this sequel still has some of that going on, but it does mostly represent a huge step in the right direction. Again, in my opinion, this sequel is generally regarded as, arguably a little less gritty or gruesome maybe than the first game, but simultaneously a little more polished, particularly when it comes to the traversal and the platforming elements, because the first game was arguably kind of clunky by comparison in those regards. Don't be put off by that, though. This game is still more dark, gritty, and brutal than most. I have to say that I didn't love the map layout at first. Your progress is often very hard won, but very rewarding, to be fair. You can struggle your ass off in this game for 1% completion progress or less. If you're the type to exit out of your game just so you can see how your progress is coming along, you will probably be setting yourself up for some disappointments. Bear in mind that I still haven't played Hollow Knight, but Blasphemous 2 is a fairly long and at times quite difficult Metroidvania. For example, you really have to work your ass off to get the double jump, which is a pretty basic move in most Metroidvanias. But here, it takes a while and some pretty significant effort to finally get that. But when you do, it really opens the game up. And the same can really be said for all of the other traversal abilities. When you finally get another one, it just opens your whole world up, and it's a great feeling. I love the entire presentation here and the unique take on a religious-inspired Gothic atmosphere and design. The game was developed by The Game Kitchen, which is based in Spain. However, something never quite came together for me in this series, despite how much I basically wanted to like it, because it's such a cool atmosphere and aesthetic. Like, I wanted to believe that I was going to love this game, but at the end of the day, it's got some strengths, it's got some weaknesses, it's good, it's not perfect, it's not even, I wouldn't say really even close to perfect, but it's worth checking out. Though again, this sequel, in my opinion, does represent significant progress over the first game, but it still lacks what I would call the sublime design of Symphony of the Night, which was released sometime around 1997, and it also lacks the design of not just that game, but other stronger entries in the genre than this. Still, Blasphemous does bring its own unique flavor to the mix, which is ultimately worth experiencing if you haven't. They did a great job with every aspect of the presentation, though I will agree with a common criticism that the short animated cutscenes sprinkled throughout the game, they're not bad on their own, but they just don't really match the tone of the game itself. They look like they came from another project, or like it's fan art or something. Now, there's a reason for that. Those cutscenes were handled by a separate studio, and that fact does show. It didn't really bother me, but I do see it as an opportunity for improvement, and, it is worth mentioning, I guess. Now, I can see where a lot of people might quit this game before getting to the end. It does get really frustrating, but if you persevere, it can also be pretty darn rewarding, as I mentioned earlier. One of the toughest spots in the game for me, and for others, based on some of the forums that I read, is actually a mini-boss battle, which just consists of a bunch of rando regular enemies. And this is extremely frustrating, yet when you finally push through it, it feels like Christmas. Or insert the holiday of your choosing. The game also does a pretty excellent job of creating a sense of place, of a convincing fictional world, but I don't love the map layout of that world or traversing it really. It kind of just feels like a pain in the ass. If you're okay with Metroidvanias that you can actually get lost in, even with a map, or if you actually enjoy getting lost in a Metroidvania, you need to check this game out. I'm not a fan of getting lost, period, but I thought the game was worthwhile anyways. I'm mostly talking about a map that has such a large amount of unexplored areas at any given moment that it just feels overwhelming or confusing. That's kind of what they have going on here, in my opinion. Now, it must be said that they do allow you to mark your in-game map, which should make it easier, but I didn't really utilize this feature to its full potential. I should love this game. So much about it is right up my alley. And sometimes I did love this game, but at other times I definitely hated it. I don't know if it's as hard as Cyber Shadow. Probably not, to be honest, but it feels pretty darn close at times. It took me 34 hours to finish, which is too long for a Metroidvania, in my opinion. I like them anywhere from 5 hours, good luck finding one that short, I'm sure there's a few, to maybe 15 or 20 hours on the high end. 35, getting a little lengthy at that point. It's a 2.5 gig download, which seems reasonable for what feels like a fairly large game. It normally sells for $30 on the eShop, which I would argue is too much money. Wait for it to drop to 15 or 20, which it does from time to time. Go ahead and stick it on your wish list and just wait it out. And at that point, it will represent, I would say, a good value. Look, the game is worth experiencing if you're up for the challenge and a fair amount of looking things up online, which I hate to do. Some people are more comfortable with that than I am. But regardless, it's worth checking out, like I said, if you're up for the challenge, but I'm not going to play it a second time. I've already uninstalled it, and so obviously I also have no intention of paying for the optional DLC. Anyways, that's about all I have to say for this one. If you like the show, I'd love to have a like and a subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time, whenever that may be. Bye-bye.
By which I remain here for our long-awaited meeting. Wounded by the silence of this secluded